this is Shalimar Steinberg, and today we're going to be talking about using object snaps in your drawings. And if we look on the screen, right down at the bottom here, there are several different little icons. The one for object snaps is right here. It's the square with another little square up in the corner. And if you click next to it on the triangle here, you'll see that there are different object snaps listed. Now, you can go to Object Snap Settings, and you can turn any on there that you want. So, in order for you to know which ones you want on, you have to know what they do. Basically, what an object snap is an automatically created little grip that AutoCAD will use, and it will make it available at the edge of any objects that you've already drawn, and allow you to then snap to specific points on those objects when you want to draw new objects. So for example, if I've drawn a line, I can use endpoint and it will snap me to the end of either edge of that line. I could do midpoint and it would take me to the center of that line. I can use center and it will take me to the middle of any circle that I've drawn and allow me to draw from there. These are really nice because they make sure that you're getting an exact join. You're not just near the object, which some of you may have seen in your first assignment where there were little gaps where you were trying to line things up, and you don't have to trim out any portion that goes over because you've gone exactly to the point. So what we're going to do today is go through any of these. So I'm going to turn off all of them except endpoint to start with, because when you're learning them, it's easier to use them one at a time. However, you can have multiple on at a time. So if I have just the endpoint object snap turned on, and I go into my line command, you'll see that I'm trying to make this section look like this section. So I'm going to snap to the endpoint of each of my lines on the outside, and you see that green box that it's giving me? That's the actual object snap grip. Then I can go down with it, and over to the next one, and over to the next one. The thing about object snaps that you have to be careful about is that if, for example, I now wanted to go to the center of one of the lines, you can see it's trying to snap me to the two endpoints. And so in order to go to the center of the line or somewhere else on the line, I would have to zoom in so that I was closer to the center point than I was to either of the ends so that it doesn't automatically end snap. That's why you sometimes have to turn them off if you're trying to do other things, or you don't want certain ones on because they might overlap the one that you do want on. So I'm going to continue, and I'm going to draw from endpoint to endpoint, and so forth. You see how it goes. I'm not going to do the whole thing because this is one of the practices that you'll try and do. The next one that you can turn on, and you can turn these on just by going here and making sure there's a click mark next to it, is midpoint. And I'm going to turn off endpoint so it doesn't get distracting. In this case, then, when I hover over the line, it creates a green triangle in the center point of that line, or the midpoint. And I can then use that to join it to the midpoint of the next line. The next one is intersections. And what intersections allows you to do is snap to the point where any two lines or other object parts cross over each other. And so if I go into line, you can see it's going to show me a little X at any of the intersections that are available for me to snap to. So I can snap to this first one, and then looking at the example down to this bottom one, and continue. Next we have quadrants. Quadrants are very helpful when you're wanting to draw anything that's not directly to the center of a circle. It allows you to go to any of the four quarter points of a circle, so the 0, 90 degree, 180, and 270 degree portions of a circle. So I can go to line here, and I can hover until I get the little diamond that shows that I'm on the quadrant, and then I can go to the next one, and so forth. And if you look here, it shows you what the symbol is going to look like, what little shape you're going to see next to each of these. It's clearer if you go in here, it shows you the exact shape of it because it's zoomed in more. Okay, so the next one that I want is center. This is going to allow me to go to the centers of a circle and get into line, and now whenever I hover over a circle, it's going to show me where the center of that circle is. So I can then draw to the center of another circle. Now, it doesn't show me the center until I've hovered my mouse or crossed over the actual circle itself. So I don't see the circle of the one up in the the left corner of the center because I haven't hovered over that circle. All right, next is perpendicular, which allows us to create a line that is perpendicular to somewhere on our line. The thing about perpendicular is that it doesn't start it at any specific spot. It just shows you where the perpendicular is to that line. So if I start a line and I've got perpendicular on, you can see I can drag it anywhere along that line that I want to. And when I start it, it's only going to allow me to drag it out at 90-degree angles, wherever along that line I want to. So you either need to know exactly how far in you're going and have typed in that specific point, or you need to have a guideline of some kind, like a construction line, available. So then you'll go in and just draw your lines. Next is tangent, and as we talked about when we were talking about how to make circles, tangent points are points where it touches the circle in exactly one spot. So we're going to go in here and turn off perpendicular and turn on tangent. And again, with tangency, it's not going to give you a specific spot on the circle. It's going to put it within whichever of the 4 quadrants you have the symbol in. So if I make it over here, it's going to draw it from this side of the center point. If I make it over here, it'll draw it from this side. So I'll go here and to where it's tangent to that one. And then I could go down tangent to this one. And so forth. And you see that mine looks a little more crooked, and that's because I made it tangent to the inside of this circle, when on the example here I was supposed to make it tangent to the outer edge of the circle. So the line continues further over, so it changes where it touches the circle, so you have to be aware of that. The next one is nodes. Now nodes are points, are used with points, and so points just create single dots, and nodes allow you to snap to those single points. So then you can go to any of the points that you want to and draw your shape. Nearest is very helpful if you don't need a particular spot on an object, but you want it to touch the object somewhere. However, it does not allow you a great deal of control. The important thing to note about nearest is that, like I said, it will go to whatever the nearest spot on the nearest object is. So it will overlay almost any other OSnap that you have turned on, because the nearest thing to you is almost always going to be closer than the endpoint or the midpoint or the center. So you need to know that when you are drawing your objects. So if I was, for example, trying to get the center point of something, nearest is going to make it so that it wants to go to the edge of that circle if I cross it before it goes to the center of that circle. So it's one that you typically only want to have on by itself. And then the last one that we're going to look at is perpendicular. Again, but this time you're doing it perpendicular to an arc, so it comes out a little bit differently. And so, again, you do perpendicular, but you can do it along the edge of an arc as well as that straight line that we did earlier. There are a couple of other object snaps. Geometric center is fairly new. It's only been in the last couple of editions of AutoCAD, and it's really nice because now it allows you to find the center of a geometric shape that you've drawn, a rectangle or other closed shape. Previously, you would have had to measure in from the edges and draw yourself construction lines to find that center point, but now it will allow you to do it as long as it's a closed object. Insertion, if you have an insertion point on a block, which we'll talk about later, will allow you to access that. Apparent intersection is very useful when you're doing things that are three-dimensional. What it means is that if you have an object where They appear to cross over each other, but if you looked at them in the z-axis, you would see that there's a gap in between them on the height. It will allow you to snap to where that apparent intersection point is, even though they don't actually touch each other in all three dimensions. And then parallel is supposed to allow you to create a parallel line from one that you've already got in your drawing. It tends to be somewhat touchy. I prefer to just use the offset command, which allows you to create a line that's parallel to one that you already have a specific distance away. Alright, so those are all of the object snaps. And another thing to look at is right next to object snaps, you have object snap tracking. And when this is turned on, what it does is makes it so that if you have an object snap available, so for example, if I have my endpoint turned on, and I decide that I want to draw something that is the same height as this line, but not touching this line, I can go into the line command. If I do not click, but I hover, I can see that snap point, and then I can drag over from that snap point and even type the distance away that I want it to be, and it will start my line at the same height, but a further distance over, or wherever I click. And then if I want it to be the same height all the way, I can drag over and you see those green dotted lines so that I can make sure that it's perpendicular to the width line here and still straight vertically. And so then I can create lines like that. Alright, that's it for this video.